And what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Uncommon Line podcast. We've got a great episode here today. It's just me and my guest, David Denney, standing by. What episode this is, that's a great question because this is going to be coming out after the OZ9 video, which hasn't been released just yet. So technically, we'll call it episode 39.1 is what you said, David, right?
It makes sense.
Yeah, or episode 40, episode 30. So whatever it is, it's one of those episodes. So really excited to be here. We'll take care of some housekeeping. This episode obviously be dropping on one of the days that we are releasing the Camel of Death shirt, so make sure you go check that out. It's only 48 hours only. You won't be brought back. A lot of y'all been asking about the Night Candy shirt. It's not coming back. So the shirts we're doing now, one-time runs, that's it. No secrets there. So, yeah. So also be paying attention to the post for the OZ9 build at Triarch Pushing the Line episode. It'll be coming out after this episode, so in about a week's time. So it'll be strictly YouTube only. It won't be on audio podcast. It's strictly video, which you'll be able to find on our YouTube channel as well as Triarch's. So with that being said, I got to welcome our new sponsor of the show. We announced you in our live, we've said it a couple times, and talked about it, but we're officially at your freaking unbelievable office. So welcome, David Denney, David Denney Law Group, or the Denney Law Group. Denney Law Group. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
And thank you so much for your sponsorship of the show, man.
Absolutely. It just seems like a fun thing to do. I mean, it's so much better than moving paper from the left side of the desk to the right side of the desk.
Yeah, although you come to this office and you don't think it's just moving paper, like it's actually incredible. Like I'm looking at one of the art pieces you'll see, which we posted on the Instagram, the wallpaper, I guess behind us, the artwork you said, that was designed by who? Lenny Kravitz?
Lenny Kravitz did one of the wallpapers, and Mike D from the Beastie Boys did one of the wallpapers.
Yeah, that's in.
So apparently, when you're an aging rocker, you draw wallpaper.
Do wallpaper, yeah. And where did you find the knife wallpaper?
Flavorpaper.com.
Flavorpaper.com.
They have.
So if that says anything about this law group and kind of the gist of what they are, the artwork and everything will kind of speak for itself. But we're glad to be here. Really awesome place. So real quick, I'm going to preface the entire show with this, and David will too. We've got some questions that were submitted to us on the Instagram, on the gram, whatever you want to call it, on IG, on the story. I kind of posted a story post asking if you had any questions about starting a business and, following certain laws, restrictions, running a business during COVID. David's specialty, and I'm going to let him expand on that, is small business law. So he's had a great experience amongst COVID and everything here in Dallas area.
Super fun.
Yeah, dealing some fights. But an even better reason why we want to have him on the show, not aside from him being a sponsor, but to get the perspective of COVID fight and small business law. And so y'all submitted a lot of great questions. So my preface to y'all all will be, he's not your personal lawyer. He's not my personal lawyer. He's not here to, when you ask a question, he gives a response. That's not him giving you an exact for your situation, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of changed some of the questions.
Okay.
So
the lawyer answer is it depends.
Yeah.
That's our favorite answer.
Yeah. Same as cops. Like it's not, it's always gray, right? Nothing's black and white.
Hey man, if so-and-so, it depends.
Yeah, exactly.
I can say that upside down in my sleep. It's the answer.
Yeah. So with that being said, nobody send us a message and be like, well, my personal, okay, we're going to, when I say I changed the questions, what we did is we did some generalities, right? So some of you asked, one of the common questions, which we'll get to in a second, is how can we safeguard ourselves amongst a governmental crisis right now with COVID? How can we safeguard ourselves against government in small business? So with that being said, I'm not going to ask the specific question that was asked. He's going to give a general answer to, hopefully that applies to multiple different people, not just that one person.
Exactly.
So, but before we do that, that's kind of like us giving you our disclaimer, so I don't get sued. But if you do sue me, I guess we have a sponsor now that's a lawyer. So,
what we don't want is somebody to send me a message and say, I did exactly what you said.
Exactly.
And you're dumb.
Yeah. And so, and if everybody's wondering why we have big goblets of orange juice, they're actually mimosas.
No, they're not.
It's very early in the morning.
I feel kind of gypped on the,
whiskey night
nighttime episode.
We're gonna have plenty of those. So we kind of talked with our listeners and everybody kind of knows, and we've mentioned it, and you and I have had the discussion, is where we want to go with our relationship. And something you'll hear about with David is he's very plugged into the small business network within the restaurant scene here in the Dallas area. So are you still currently the president of the Dallas Restaurants Association?
No, I'm past president.
Past president.
I was lucky enough to be the president from July of 2019 through December 31st of 2020.
And Dallas has got a great foodie scene. So if anybody wants any good suggestions on restaurants, he's the man to go see.
And I keep a running list because I get asked about it so much.
Yeah. So that's going to be one of our goals, is where we want to kind of take this relationship, is kind of give exposure to some of the businesses he's worked with or knows about that's maybe struggled during COVID, and sit down and have conversations with them. We're big foodies. You know that we're starting the Uncommon Kitchen. So it was just a partnership made in heaven, so to speak. So, but before we get to that, let's talk about how you end up a lawyer, which I don't think I would ever really be sitting here talking to a lawyer because, for the most fans, we're not a fan.
I know. We get a bad rap, but the jokes are funny.
Yeah, they are.
So probably like a lot of, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe other people had a more deliberate path. I decided in 7th grade that I wanted to be a lawyer because of television. Because I watched LA Law, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Probably was an inappropriate show for me to be watching at that age.
I was going to say, isn't that?
A lot of adult themes. But I just thought, hey, I think that way. And so from 7th grade on, I decided that was my path. However, in high school, I decided to go to college and be a religion major. And I started as a religion major my first year of college. And I thought maybe I'll be a pastor, maybe I'll be a college pastor, youth pastor, something like that. And then I thought, man, I think lawyering is the way to do it. And my dad gave me some great advice toward the end of my freshman year of college and said, you would be positioned to be ministering to people who need it as an attorney, whether you're a business lawyer or a litigator, public defender, whatever. Like you will come in contact with as many people or more,
if no more. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not a jailhouse lawyer. I'm a business lawyer, but I feel like my mission in that helping people create, grow, and thrive a small business is more woven into the fabric of our country than, pushing paper for a big insurance company or something. And so I feel like I've had the ability to actually accomplish that. And so, but it was because of TV.
So then how did you get involved in, obviously, a lot of your clients, you talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of your clients are within the restaurant realm, right?
Yeah. So the way that I like to describe it is we don't only represent hospitality companies, but everyone that we do represent does hospitality really well. Really well. So for example, if you can be a really, really big commercial landscaping company, but you can do hospitality really well. You can take care of your clients. You can take care of your employees. You can be a good steward, and so their main focus is to do a lot of commercial landscaping, but the way in which they do it, like those are the people that we gel with.
Yeah.
And so the way that I got into the hospitality space specifically, which means I tell people it's, restaurants, bars, breweries, distilleries, top chefs, iron chefs, caterers, things like that.
Like real top chefs and iron chefs, like on Food Network.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love that show.
A couple.
Oh, well, we're getting notified via the wife that your microphone needs to be turned a little bit toward yourself.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know what she means.
Thought she was just giving me the thumbs up because I was doing so great.
I thought she was flipping you off, but yeah, now she rudely interrupted you.
No.
Well, anyways, guys,
this is so glamorous. Okay, Miss Producer, I appreciate.
Yeah, Miss Producer, exactly.
Good
yeah,
Lord. I'm sorry I didn't pick up on those many, many subtle cues.
No, so hospitality. I guess that's a good way to put it. Is you specialize a lot in hospitality, and it just so happens those realms of clients and people you work with is hospitality.
Yeah, and there's an industry book by sort of one of the gods of hospitality named Danny Meyer called Setting the Table, and it's sort of bringing hospitality to the business world, and it's a multi-million copy bestseller. And he has gone on CNBC and talked about, he has like some people have an index of, businesses in the outdoor space, and some people have indexes of businesses, in airlines or whatever. He has a hospitality index of companies that do hospitality well, and they have all outperformed, the S&P or the NASDAQ over the course of 10 years. And it's a way of doing business that I think resonates with people.
So how did you get into that type of law?
Well, so
because you're a foodie
I've
yourself.
always been a foodie. And so the way that,
so it was selfish reasons. Like, I just want to get plugged in with a bunch of different restaurants.
which
I totally don't judge you for, man.
It was more from a philosophical place of trying to figure out how to marry my avocation with my vocation.
Hell yeah.
And I decided that if I could put my hobby with my work, because I was probably a fourth or fifth year lawyer.
What's a normal year? Because I'm not smart enough.
Well,
to know,
I was young.
Oh, okay.
I'd only been a lawyer for 5 years.
Okay. All right.
And so I thought, this is already pretty boring.
And you're working where at that point?
I was working in a firm.
So just like normal
50 lawyers, high rise downtown, 50-year-old company. And I was doing good work. It wasn't unreasonable. I mean, nobody was asking me to do anything weird. We weren't, shredding in-run documents or anything all day. But I thought, this is just not compelling me to be excited about the next 30 or 40 years of my career. But on the weekends, so for example, my brother Paul, he would like to spend, if he has 5 or 6 hours, he would like to spend it tailgating, going to a Cowboy game, having the whole experience.
I've never met your brother, but I like your brother.
And if I had 5 or 6 hours, I would want to be at a restaurant with friends around a big round table with a few bottles of wine and a good experience, and the chef coming out and telling us, this is how we do.
Both good things.
Right? But that was my thing.
Yeah.
And so I thought, gosh, if I could. And so I was taking cooking classes. I like to do hands-on classes. We were taking them at places like Central Market, Sur La Table. We were doing, and then bigger ones that restaurants would have that would be an all-day experience. You would cook in the kitchen. You'd wear an apron, and some of it was unglamorous, man. You'd like chop onions for 2 hours, right? I mean, I just paid a lot of dough to come out here, and I'm chopping onions for y'all. And
yeah, I am now a prep chef,
right? But there's something.
But really, if you think about it on the business side of things for the restaurant, that's a perfect for me. Like, hey, do the bitch work for me.
It's on a day the restaurant is closed. Everyone's paying a lot of money to come show up and do this. At the end, so everyone, it's probably, call it a dozen people. Everybody stages out, does different courses, and then you have somebody come and you have a big meal. And that experience was great. I would get it for my birthday. I would get it for not Father's Day, but like for my anniversary. And so I that's what I really enjoyed. And then I had the occasion for one of my clients to do a contract with a caterer to cater some stuff at their retail store. And I realized, man, this contract is just worthless. It's terrible. So
like the actual contract, like that they signed,
that the caterer gave us was just basically meaningless. And I told my friends who owned the store, I said, you almost couldn't just not pay the guy. You could barely do anything about it, So about 6 months later, because I liked the restaurant, so about 6 months later, I reached out to the guy who owned that restaurant, and I said, here's a diskette, and I fixed your contract, because I want you to not make mistakes, right? And he thought he was super suspicious of it.
Yeah.
What's
your
not
angle here?
What's your hook?
Yeah.
So I gave him I fixed the contract, and this is, I would probably, because of liability concerns, I'll probably never do this now.
Yeah.
But I gave him a paper contract and a disc, and I said, here, I made it better. So I didn't hear anything. I thought, gosh, at least the guy could have called me and thanked me, whatever. He was just like, hey, I appreciate it, bro. And I left. 6 months later, he called me. And he was like, I finally figured out, I finally found your phone number. I didn't remember who you were. I tried to find you because you're the guy that brought that. In the 6 months since you did that, I've been burned on $25,000 worth of catering revenue. And what you gave me, I threw in the trash. And
but hey, listen.
So I would like now to have you help me.
Yeah. Can I get another copy of that diskette, please?
And I thought, okay. So it was a culinary school trained chef, owned a restaurant, did a lot of catering gigs. And I thought, this might be kind of a regular baseline. especially when culinary school chefs at that time, especially, were not trained in business. They were 2 years of chopping and cutting and temperatures and food safety, and you would learn the different kinds of cuisine. But nobody taught you how to read a P&L, a profit and loss statement. Nobody taught you how to put entities together, sign leases, anything. And so I thought maybe there's something here. I did a little digging. A mutual friend introduced me to somebody who owns a few Mexican restaurants here in town. And I talked to him about it. And I said, hey, is this a thing that I'm a niche I might create? And he said, man, restaurant people don't pay lawyers. They just don't. They don't feel like they need them. They don't feel like their business is big enough to need them.
Wouldn't you though argue that like most small businesses don't even consider that?
Absolutely. I do. And it's the same rationale that I hear a lot where people say, I don't need a will, I don't have anything. Okay. Like, you don't have to be independently wealthy to need a will. If you have a mother-in-law and a kid and you don't want that mother-in-law to take your kid when you're both dead, you need something that says that. So people just don't think about it. Oh, I don't have anything for anybody to take, so why do I care about whether I sign the lease or not? Well, isn't the goal to have something someday?
Yeah.
Isn't the goal to protect what you have created and what you're going to earn in the future? If so, do it right.
So did you find yourself trying to when then you start out your firm, and did you find yourself approaching clients and telling them, hey, you do need this?
So the first challenge was, there were two challenges. One was to ask my firm if I could do what I wanted to do. And the second challenge was to find people to do it for. So I was 30 or 31 years old. I was in this firm, and I asked the management committee, can I start a practice group? Because, big law firms, they'll have a bankruptcy practice group and a tax group and a litigation group. So they'll have everything delineated by practice area. And I said, I would like to create a food, beverage, and hospitality practice group and chair it. And they said, is it going to cost us any money? And I said, no, just add a page to the website. And they said, okay. So I did. And I was the chair of a practice group at 31 years old, which is weird. And that didn't mean anything other than I needed to go find those clients for myself. And then the firm went out of business. So the firm went under in February of 2007. At that time, I probably had 3 restaurant clients. Also in February of 2007, I founded this. So essentially 15 years ago. And I went from...
Were you able to take those clients with you?
Yeah. And so the reason that I was able to do that and not have to go find a job somewhere else is because from the outset in my career, let me back up. The typical lawyer path is to just be a worker bee for 7 or 8 years or 9 years or 10 years, and then you try to make partner, and then you're magically supposed to be able to go out and generate business. I thought that was crazy, that old model is not really sustainable in the future, in my opinion. So I always felt like I would be more valuable to a firm that I worked for if I had my own clients. And so that might be a brother-in-law. It might be friends from church. There's people in my small group. So we were in a young married small group then. And we were, there were people in medical school. I was in law school. I mean, I started law school 2 months after I got married. So,
yeah, well,
surprise, honey.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, people eventually would leave a company, start their own business, a lot of entrepreneurs in that group. So I had these clients, and they didn't do very much, but they were mine.
Right.
And so I was able to basically do that. So the firm went under, and I took basically $1,000 out of my savings account and bought a computer. No, I didn't buy a computer. I borrowed a computer from a friend. I borrowed an empty office from a friend. And 3 months later, I was paying myself what I made at the firm.
Sure.
And just because of, like, people said, I heard that you went on your own. Other lawyers, I have a conflict of interest on this case. I'm going to refer something out to you. We can't take it, but we like you and you could handle this. And I mean, that paid the bills for a year. And it was super hard work. But if those people had not recognized that I could take those referrals, I would have just had to go find a job.
And so here you are 15 years later.
Yeah.
In a high rise in Dallas with an awesome office. And you're practicing law in arguably, you're the lawyer. Tell me what I'm trying to say.
Arguably.
That word.
Yeah.
The toughest time for businesses in the history of the world, I would argue.
So March 16th of 2020, the day that Texas shut all the dining rooms of restaurants for a while, and made restaurants to go and pick up only. I'll never forget it. And I started.
And at that point, real quick to preface it, at that point, your majority of your clients here in Dallas are hospitality based. A lot of them restaurants
all over Texas.
And some of them, which we'll talk about, are new restaurants or new businesses.
Yeah.
And so how? So continue.
So March 16th of 2020, I canceled all my magazine subscriptions because I was like, we're going to have no money. And so on March 18th of 2020, the former president of the Dallas Restaurant Association called me and he said, "Hey, I just want to check on you, see how things are going." I said,
You're not standing on a ledge yet.
I said, "Well, it's pretty tough, man. I got to tell you." He said, I just wanted to call and check on you, and also say, when I was president, I didn't destroy the entire restaurant industry. So congratulations. I was like, oh my God, thank you for reaching out and touching someone.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was as scary a time as I've ever. So the crazy thing is, when I graduated from law school and was waiting to start my first job after the bar exam, 9/11 happened. When I started my firm in February of 2007, the financial crisis happened at the end of that year, and then 2008, nobody knew what was going to happen. And then I'm lucky enough. I feel like I was uniquely blessed to be the president of the Restaurant Association during 2020 because I'm the only lawyer to have ever done that. And so because
real quick, what is everybody else? I mean, like,
they're restaurant owners.
Oh, they're
all of them.
All of them.
They've all. I mean, so not there's membership. Members are restaurant owners and non-restaurant owners, but the president has always been a restaurant owner. But if a restaurant person had been president during COVID, that person would have been crushing it to save their own business.
Yeah.
As opposed to me, where I had a 30,000-foot view of everybody, and I was able to help people navigate PPP and idle loans and government programs and government closures in cities and counties or whatever. I just feel like, and a lot of people reached out and said it was a really unique blessing for me to be able to do that. And it was super hard. I mean, everybody was scared. Everybody was, nobody was, so there were people that made money during COVID. I don't have, so the people that did really well are sort of the holy trinity of easy food, Chinese food, pizza, and Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
Like, most of those guys are okay. But a lot of other people really suffered. So that March 16th day, I was like, oh my God, we're 50% likely to go out of business this year. I put so many of my eggs in the hospitality basket that when the hospitality industry is clearly the first one to get the battle axe to the head, like,
yeah,
I was worried.
That's the thing is, like, I mean, and really you couldn't have, if I'm sitting in your position and, and I'm the owner of my own practice and everything, and I'm in hospitality, I would never even have thought it would have gone that way, right? That wasn't like, I'm sure you had safeguards in place as a business owner of, what if this happens, if this happens.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah, but that, that to me was so unexpected for everybody, right?
Oh, yeah.
On such a scale.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not only that, then you're practicing law, obviously in Texas, but obviously a lot of your clients, I assume, are in Dallas, and I'm sure there's other counties that are very, very liberal. And so then how many of these was it a fight to fight restriction? Obviously, I don't think we saw anything like New York City where we have the craziness going on there, but I'm assuming there were some fights that were picked up during that, you look at, because getting to know you, you look at the infringement of rights, right? You're a gun owner, you've competed in the tactical games, things of that such. So I know
I would say I participated in the tactical games.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like I was competitive.
You were there, but you get what I'm saying. So it's like, how much of the fight during COVID in small business was a fight of like, hey, you're infringing on this person's rights?
So it wasn't, there wasn't a lot of fighting. And we have clients all over the state, but and in some other states, but obviously mostly here with a very large concentration in North Texas. And so there is a hodgepodge of different governmental organizations at play at the county level, at the city level, and at the state level. And all of those had rules. And so for those of you that are not in Texas, the county judge during a time of emergency declaration has lots of power.
And let me ask you this, because I'm not even going to say his name because anyways.
Yes.
So this Jenkins dude,
Yeah.
this Judge Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
So is he an actual judge?
Yes.
Like
he's a county judge.
These county judges. So is he like a criminal judge? Like, what does he do to all of a sudden take over and start barking orders? I just have never heard of this until now, and all of a sudden these judges are popping up, and I'm like, who are you?
It's an elected position.
Okay.
And they stay relatively low key unless there's a hurricane, tornado,
or an election
disaster.
year, or they want their photo or video on the news.
And because we were under a disaster declaration from maybe March 18th of 2020 to now, they have tremendous power across the state to manage their county in times of disaster, and that can include making rules to protect the public good, right? And so
whether or not they're infringements or not.
Yeah, and so what resulted there was county and city rules that were really hard to comply with, and there was such a hodgepodge of rules, it was really hard for people to know exactly, and we're kind of in that now with masks, to know exactly what the rule is at any given time.
And I'm assuming that's even worse for small businesses, and then specifically in the hospitality realm of restaurants.
Right. Because the hospitality space took all the arrows. Bars got blamed for all the COVID outbreaks. They just did. Like bars didn't get to open until fall.
The last.
And so for example, if you're a Brinker, right, that owns Chili's and all that other stuff, you have legislative affairs people that work in your company. They're on top of and they are monitoring all of the different rules and regulations that are going to apply at any given time in all the various counties and states where they have restaurants. If you own a restaurant in Fort Worth, Texas, which is in Tarrant County, if you own one in Dallas, that's in Dallas County, and you own one in Plano, that's in Collin County.
Same company, but different locations.
Or let's say you own a pizza place and a taco shop and a hamburger place. It doesn't matter what they are. But if you're in 3 different counties, you could easily have 3 different sets of rules for 3 different sets of employees, for 3 different sets of guests. And usually your small business doesn't have a lot of back office. It's just 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 people sort of in management, in upper management. And so there was so much confusion about what to do so the Dallas Restaurant Association and the Texas Restaurant Association came out so strong and immediately started advocating with Governor Abbott and worked really
in favor of small businesses and restaurants. Okay.
And so in favor of getting clarity in a lot of the rules in doing alcohol to go.
That was a great thing.
Although
we really didn't take part of it that much. Like we really, because we usually have alcohol at home.
It saved so many people.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I just remember like people, the first time I saw it, I was on duty and I saw this dude my current role in law enforcement is not what it used to be. So I saw some dude like had a Tito's on top of his Taco Cabana cup. And I was like, hold up, that's illegal. And I'm like, no, I guess, and come to find out they pass it. So I'm assuming that it saved a ton of businesses.
Oh, it did. So I did that as a tangent. So for example, in Dallas, people had to post the mask rules and the social distancing rules, which were 6 pages at the time, in their window. And the rule came out and said, if you don't post this by 4:00 today, you're going to be fined $1,000 or something like that. And so people were people were like, where's the printer that works? Do I have one of those plastic sleeves from Office Depot where I can tape it up? What people were calling me like, what side of the door do I put it on? I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't, just put it in the window. It doesn't matter. And then they would have health inspectors show up and say, you don't have it in the window. Some people were putting all 6 pages on the glass. Some people weren't. But they were like, if you don't have this up in an hour, we're going to come and close you till you can get it posted. And
technically, by letter of the law, it is the law,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the way, but there was no clarity on,
No,
for
and
example, like a 30-06 posting for weapons.
Yeah.
It's got to be a certain size,
Yeah.
posted in a certain way, but there was none of that done,
no.
right?
Well, and so if you're in Dallas, you had one set of rules. If you're in Tarrant County, you had another set of rules. So there was a real hodgepodge of how do I because people, for the most part, didn't want to fight. They wanted to comply. Because you got to remember, in March and April of 2020, everyone was terrified. Terrified. We all thought we were all going to die. And so no restaurant wanted to be the place who, was responsible for an outbreak or somebody getting sick or any of that stuff. So they wanted to do it. They just wanted to do it properly. And they also didn't want to do it in such a way that scared everybody off because people were barely coming as it is.
So let me ask you this. As an attorney, did you get the calls of individuals that are like, I believe this is an infringement on my rights as an American citizen and a small business owner?
So, yes. And
I assume that progressed throughout the longer this lasted.
It did, but so here's the thing: a few people felt that way continually. A lot of other people who initially felt that way became essentially desensitized to it, and we're like, whatever, we'll just deal with it. And then toward the end of 2020, early 2021, a lot of people were like, I'm not going to be the masked police anymore. If somebody comes into my place, we're not telling them to put a mask on. So some people were like, forget it.
And so as an attorney, generically speaking, as an attorney, a business owner calls you, and we'll call it in the current climate. A business owner calls you, a small business owner calls you and says, I believe that it is my right if they don't want to wear it, they don't have to. What would you say your advice to them? Because you being somebody that believes in, freedom and rights, but at the same time, you're an attorney that has to protect you against these outrageous laws that may be passed at times. Mm-hmm. Like, what advice do you give small business owners for that?
So in the current climate, literally as of today, Dallas County is under a mask order. It has been, so a restraining order was granted to allow the mask order. Then it was taken away. Then an injunction came down. So the injunction, so it's an injunction against Abbott's mandate that says no masks. That happened Wednesday of this week, I believe.
And that's essentially saying that you have to wear. They want Clay Jenkins.
Dallas County wants you to wear a mask.
Dallas County wants you to wear a mask. Governor Abbott of Texas is saying, hey, leave it up to the individual person to demand that.
So Clay Jenkins sought an injunction against Governor Abbott's order that said you don't have to require masks. So that will be appealed. So now we're technically under one again so it was on, off, on. Oh, actually, it was off, on, and it's about to probably be off again when it gets to the Supreme Court.
And so how does a business navigate that?
So it's really hard because in a climate where you spent all of 2020 trying to do the right thing, curbside pickup. So there were people that had never done curbside pickup before. There were people that had never sold to go or used third-party delivery and had to figure out how to navigate that. Like, we've never used DoorDash. How do we use Uber Eats? How do we make money when we use Uber Eats? Things like that. So they're already decimated. They don't want to drive their customers away. They want to be responsible. They don't want to be. And so one of the things that is a problem within the mask environment is that it turns the host, hostess, server, restaurant owner into the mask police, which nobody wants to take on that role.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel bad for a couple people that I'm like, hey. Anyways.
So I tell people that compliance is the key, but they're free to run their businesses as they want because I think people should try to protect their employees. I think they should, if anyone really thinks that wearing a mask between the door and the table is doing very much, then they can require that, right? Yeah. But if I'm going to tell people to comply, but for right now, for the next week or two, you're just in total limbo,
right?
Because we're all pretty sure that current pro-mask order is going to go away. So I want people to comply, but I also don't feel like they are under any obligation to say you can't eat here if you don't have a mask on. They can say that.
Yeah.
But they don't have to.
So let me ask you your opinion on this, your personal opinion. I don't want it to reflect on anybody else except your personal opinion, but the thought of, I as an American citizen should be able to choose vaccination, mask, and the business having the right, which I totally agree with. I think as a small business, you have the right to tell me, hey, I don't want you in here because of the mask. Respect that. I can't get mad at that because that's your business decision. What is your opinion on the fact that like government ordering you to do that and then making your clients and your job harder? Because essentially, you say comply, right? But that's in the sense of like you don't want these guys to get in trouble as a business, right? Because as an attorney for the business, you're trying to safeguard their business, right?
I'm playing the long game.
Right.
I just want them to be okay.
Right.
And so, luckily, Texas has a new law that was just put into effect that prohibits mask mandates. And so we're not going to have to, just like in 2008 when we had a financial crisis, Texas survived because we had a much stronger economic base than the coasts. Same thing happened during COVID. We did not shut all restaurants and hospitality down and small businesses and gyms. And I mean, they were shut down for a while, but they came back.
Right.
And they're only just coming back online, in say California and New York. And they're at risk of going dark again because of the variants or whatever. We are not going to have that here. And so Texas and places like Texas and Florida, we just have less of that restriction. So in Texas now we have a law that says you cannot require a vaccine passport. That does not mean that a business, if they decide they want to, require their employees to be vaccinated. They have the right to do that. No, there's nothing that says you have to ensure that your employees are vaccinated. And so I think that gives the business owner a lot of flexibility. If that business owner is of the persuasion that they only want vaccinated employees and they're going to mandate that, they have the right to do it. But if they don't have to. And so the market. Do
you see that being problematic in the future between an employee and an employer?
Well, but the market is going to even itself out at some point.
Meaning?
So I think if a restaurant employee, certain restaurant employee may say, I want to work for a place that requires employees to be vaccinated because I want to feel safe. Another person may say, I don't want to get the vaccine. I can't work for this person. And don't forget, we're in a nationwide labor drought, especially in hospitality. And so people have the ability to get jobs anywhere they want them.
Right. Yeah. If they want to.
If they want to. But if they want to work if they want to work in a place that says we require everybody to be vaccinated because they feel safer, they're going to go get that job.
But what about, take a situation of where we're at currently. You've been in a business for 7 years and you've been with the company and you enjoy working at that company, but all of a sudden they go, hey, everybody's got to be vaccinated. Mm-hmm. How can, I guess it's a business so they can make that decision, but as far as like HIPAA and medical records and all that, how can you navigate that as a business owner? Because as an employer, I would go, pound sand, dude, I'm not getting it. So you got to fire me. Well, then do they have a right to, fight for their job and to take the small business to court because, hey, you just fired me for something I don't have to disclose to you for my medical records?
They probably do. In Texas, they probably don't because it's an at-will employment state. So because we're at will, I can fire you for any reason.
But you got to have cause, right?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that is the dumbest haircut. You're fired. You can go get unemployment because you got laid off, but we don't have wrongful termination unless it's for like retaliation or people are like, oh yeah, wrongful termination. No. You can get terminated. Just means that you can go get unemployment. And so the employers have a lot of leeway in what they want to do with their businesses when it comes to governance of their employees. But what we haven't seen, so we've seen a lot of companies, especially at the national level, come out and say, we're going to require vaccines. What we haven't seen is sort of the secondary, are they going to allow exemptions? I mean, the military came out and said, everybody has to get vaccinated and that we'll get to the exemptions later. So they haven't even written the rules for that yet.
Yeah.
For religious or health exemptions or anything. They just made the blanket statement. So I feel like a lot of people are in the business of making blanket statements for the purpose of having a headline to post or a top line bold sentence. and are taking the ability to take some time to actually write the rest of their rule. But that's where the meat of the rule is.
Right.
Is the rest of the rule.
Yeah.
So I like that we don't reach into the businesses and tell the businesses what to do. And that's where, even in conservatives, the dichotomy is it personal liberty, or do we want to keep the government out of business? Like, those usually are aligned. But well,
that's what the problem is now. Is like there's not such a clear, concise barrier between the two when it comes to, because in my eye, and I work for a government, right? I work for the government. I mean, technically, what I do, I'm working for the government, right? Mm-hmm. And luckily, I work for a great agency that I never see them going, "You will get vaccinated." But there's also the point of like personal liberty and the government. But here, the lines are getting so intertwined that I'm like, man, having to navigate that as a business owner and an employee, both on both sides, it's not like what it used to be, right?
Right. And I think so. You got to remember too, in the world of smaller business, this is not what people are worrying about every day. They're thinking about it a little bit, but on the daily, they're looking at, how's my inventory, how are my employees, does Claire have the COVID, when is Claire coming back to work?
Because I mean, for a lot of these businesses, a week closed, they're done.
Oh man, we saw a ton of people that had no backstop. They were basically running a month or two. They had a month or two of cash or 3 weeks of cash, and they were 100% dependent on the next week's cash flow. And when that stopped, people were freaking out. And I had one client, after first round of PPP came out, and he said, "We're all a little socialist now because we're all taking the money. We have to."
Yeah.
You know, like, oh man, I'm depressed now that you put it that way. But it was a very succinct way of saying, like, we're all on the dole.
Yeah.
Because we can't survive without it.
Right. So that brings me to one of the first questions we got, and like I said, I'll kind of change the question so it's not very specific to their business, but more generally, as an attorney that represents in hospitality, and if you feel like if you can give a more general advice from your experience for any small business, right? Because a lot of them are the same things. You know, we're worrying about bottom line. You know, for some of it, may not be a lot of overhead, but it may be week to week type thing. Mm-hmm. Seeing I'm not even gonna say post COVID because we're not post COVID, but
I kind of thought we were. A couple of months ago, I did saying that.
I did too. What would be your biggest advice for a small business owner to safeguard themselves? If I can remember part of the correct, to safeguard their business on the law side pre-COVID to maintain their small business long term. So essentially, where I'm going for that is, you had some businesses that started business literally right before or during COVID, right?
Right. Yeah.
What mistakes do you see as an attorney for small businesses starting a business amongst adversity, right? Mm-hmm. And what to do to safeguard yourself against the adversity coming, or COVID coming, or financial crisis coming. I mean, shoot, somebody may be in real estate, and yeah, it's great right now, but God, the bottom's got to fall out at some point.
Right.
So what are people doing, and what do you suggest as an attorney for those small business owners to safeguard themselves now?
Yeah. So the crazy thing about the people that opened during COVID, whether it was a restaurant, a retail store, software company, it was all about timing. So the people that opened in May or June of 2020 had been working on that since 2019. They'd signed a lease, they had done construction, they'd built out their store, and then construction was over.
And they technically already have bills coming in for that. I mean,
sure,
maybe just interest alone on the construction, but they've got stuff coming in with no inventory going out.
So the question that I got from some of them was, do we wait to open and see what happens? Do you think this thing's going to end in 3 or 4 more weeks? Or do we just open? And some of them didn't ask. They were just like, we got to open. But what they were able to do was to actually make fewer mistakes, because the people that were building out, they were able to build and sort of accommodate for COVID. So some of them spent a little extra money on filters for their HVAC systems that were designed to help circulate and pull airflow that would make it less likely, theoretically, for the virus to circulate in their store. So did they spend a little money on the front end? Yes, but then they could tell people that they were interviewing, guests, whatever, like, we have this system that'll keep you safe, which was an actual selling point, either in recruiting or in sales, that was good for them that other people didn't have. So that was kind of cool. They were also able to more tastefully set up their social distancing on the ground. You know, here's 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet, as opposed to just an X of painter's tape on the ground, you know, which you still see those on the ground, somewhere like outside of Academy or something,
exactly,
you know, like, oh, those are the old X's. I feel like an archaeologist at the COVID time. But if there are people who are concerned about how do I protect against this tsunami of craziness in the future, the thing that the death knell to most small businesses, the thing that makes the wives' tale true about all new businesses, 80% of new businesses fail within 2 years, which is total BS. 80% of businesses that are not properly capitalized at startup fail. And being capitalized and having a minimum of 3 months operating capital in the bank at any given time is imperative. And so a lot of small business owners are like, well, how do I get that? How do I start with that in the bank? Either you're going to go to the SBA and borrow money, or more likely you're going to raise money from friends and family. You just raise more money. And so a lot of what we see are these new companies that are capitalized with less than $1 million. And so their total build out budget for their new business is going to be tenant improvement money from a landlord, whether it's to build cubicles or whatever. So you take all of that plus everything that you have to spend, and that's your total. You raise more than that because you have to have a contingency reserve. Nobody expected wood to go up 500%.
Golly. Yeah, tell me about it as we build a house.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes, it's back down to 300% over 2019.
Yeah, our builder was like, that board right there used to be $10. It's $300 now or something. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So contingency reserve, and it's just operating capital. If something breaks, you have to have the money to fix it. You can't thrive if you're putting your emergencies on your personal credit card. So the way to do that is to properly capitalize it with enough money in the bank to start. And then you have to be diligent about keeping that nest egg, because the people that had a little cash was king all of 2020. Everyone who got PPP money.
So were guns and ammo.
Oh, yeah. No, that was cash.
Yeah.
Wood. I love those memes where it was just a pickup truck bed with plywood and ammo crates.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm rich.
Yeah, exactly. And you were.
Yeah, you were rich. So having that cash and the people that were able to get the PPP money and not spend it, and not spend it all, they were in a lot better position to relaunch in the fall or in the late summer than people that were just like, we're dry.
Yeah.
And God, the worst thing about the initial PPP, the Payment Protection Act, payment protection plan from the government, was that it was supposed to keep people on payroll through COVID. And so people got this PPP money. They paid their people with it. They weren't working. The money ran out. The people didn't come back to work because the restaurants and businesses and gyms and salons still weren't open. And they didn't have any of that money. And yeah, it was forgiven, but they didn't have any of the cash they could do anything with.
Right.
And more likely than not, a lot of those employees were taking unemployment also. And I saw an article a couple of weeks ago about how, more than 50% of the unemployment funds that went out during 2020 were fraudulent. So.
Do you agree with that?
I mean, sure.
I 100% agree with it.
I got a letter here at the office from Texas Workforce Commission that said David Denney had been terminated. And I said, well, that's interesting.
Yeah. How's this work?
So check the box of, this didn't really happen. This appears to have been fraudulent. filed a police report with Dallas Police Department, uploaded it all. 3 months later, Texas Workforce Commission called me and said, "I'm sorry, why do you think that this this filing was fraud?" And I said, "Because it's me." And she said, "I don't understand." And I said, "Okay, I own the company.
Yeah.
I didn't fire myself."
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, I see. That'll be all."
Yeah. Yeah. I'm telling you, in my current assignment in law enforcement, I can tell you how many of these are fraudulent because we may or may not use certain avenues to investigate things. Mm-hmm. And the amount has just been astronomical, the amount of fraud. Yeah. And, seeing, which is just crazy because it opens up another can of worms of, seeing somebody that I'm like, okay, you're living on Section 8 housing, but I just tracked you to the Gucci store in Dallas and you just dropped $15,000, but you're on Section 8 housing and unemployment. And it just hurts my brain. But all they're doing is open an LLC, get the small business loan, close that LLC, show it as whatever, and it's just constantly happening.
Yeah. My favorite story was out of Florida. And I mean, like probably literally every person I know that got PPP knows this story, but there was a guy in Florida who took a couple $1 million of PPP money from the government, and then they found him with a Lambo, and he was taking 3 vacations, and he bought a house, and that dude's in prison.
Yeah, sure.
But they're not. That's one person they caught.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah.
So the unemployment thing, my brother got an unemployment filing on his name. I got one at this company. Somebody else that works for me does. And then people started calling me saying, "Is this thing with my name on it? Does that mean somebody has filed on my social?" And I'm like, "Yeah, probably from Eastern Europe, whatever. Who knows?"
Yeah. Probably the Taliban.
Yeah. Well, they're rich in bullets.
Yeah. They've got, what was it? 3? I forget how many billions of dollars worth of gear. Oh God. Yeah.
But that was so we went in stages during COVID for all small businesses. We went in stages. The first stage was, oh my God, what's happening? It's March. It's mid-March of 2020. They're making us go dark. The next one was, okay, we can open for to-go and for delivery. Then it was, okay, PPP is coming. What does that mean? How do I get it? What do I have to? Am I guaranteeing it? Am I not? What can I use it for? What can I not use it for? So it was that. Then there was the EIDL, Economic Incentive Disaster Loan, which is guaranteed. You have to pay that back. And then it was, how do I safely reopen? How do I not get sued from a guest or an employee? Because there was early on, there was a suit against Walmart because somebody said you didn't make people take proper precautions, and my father got COVID when he worked there and died, and so
did they win?
Well, it's probably going to get settled out in insurance, but it was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Yeah. It was one of the first ones, so the first one gets to be the big one.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I was holding webinars about, okay, look, there's no possible way that they can figure out where somebody got this unless they've been living in a cave, never ventured out. The first place they go is to Walmart, and they never go anywhere else. And even then, you have to have not seen anyone.
Yeah.
So the chances of that ever being proven, there's a huge causation problem. So in order to have, you have causation, then you have damages. Damages are, I got COVID and died. Causation is, you gave it to me. That's almost impossible. I mean like 99.9% impossible to show. But it doesn't mean that a bunch of jerks are not going to file lawsuits because, as we know,
which is still then a pain in the ass, especially for a small business.
Oh, yeah.
And so then I go into one of the other questions we got is, as a small business owner, do I absolutely need an attorney?
Well, you only
don't just give me a pitch because you have an attorney.
You don't.
I mean, I can honestly say, and even when we sent you our contract and you looked it over and you were like, "Well, this is bullshit." No, I'm just kidding.
That was so nice.
But I mean, there were several things that even after consulting other people who are attorneys, you had a different take on it, especially here in Texas, and it was great to have stuff changed. And so it's been now great.
I feel like I made it better.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's my point.
It's literally the same thing I did with that caterer.
Yeah, and it's the same, and that's stuff that you think about that safeguard a small business against bigger problems. Me personally, I think 100% a small business needs it, but at least in certain, maybe not on retainer,
right.
But in instances where I need to consult an attorney on this because now I'm going to deal with other people.
So you only need an attorney in those circumstances, right? You don't need to be paying some monthly. No, yeah, and it's so rare too for people to just be like, I'm just going to pay you monthly because I may or may not need you. If you have a potential ongoing need, it'll even out. We have a handful of people that do that, but it's people that we are regularly doing work for. Most of the time it's, I have this thing coming, like not, I'm signing this tomorrow, read it. Please don't do that. That's hurtful.
Yeah.
It's hurtful to me. But my favorite kind of conversation to have is, I'm going to sit down with you and we're going to say, what is this potential project going to be? What is the long-term goal? What is coming down the road, and what are the potential future paths that it might take? And so if you have an existing business and you have employees and you don't have a handbook, you should have one. Does that mean that, you need to go downtown and go to the top of a high rise and hire a lawyer? No, not necessarily. There are a lot of people that can do it. But you only need that person when you have that need. So if you're about to start one, you should 100% talk to an accountant and a lawyer. Talk to the accountant first.
Why is that?
Because they need to give you tax advice on how to set things up. Because I am not a tax lawyer. I will work hand in glove with a CPA to say, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. But so
don't go to like LegalZoom and just.
Oh my God, that's super offensive to me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, LegalZoom is purely generic paperwork. It doesn't, and so they do a couple of things. They do entities, companies, and they do trademarks, and both of those have a lot of nuance to them. And the nuance is where the money is. So if you have 3 people that are starting a company together, and one's the girl with the money, and one's the guy with the idea, and one's the one who's gonna, the other one's the person who's gonna work all day. You put those 3 people together in a LegalZoom contract, and they're all gonna own thirds, and they're gonna get that document, and they're gonna be owners, but it isn't gonna govern how things are run. It doesn't address what happens if he gets divorced and a divorce court gives his ownership of the company to the ex-spouse. Now you're partners with the ex-spouse that you never wanted to be partners with in the first place. There are things that can be addressed on paper. So you have to protect against what I call the 4 Ds: death, disability, divorce, and deadbeat partners. You do that in a contract. How do we buy you out if you're
deadbeat? If
you're a deadbeat. So my favorite. So there's a restaurateur in. He's so fun, and I was trying to describe this, and he'd seen it before. He'd been down the road a few times, and I said, we got to protect against a deadbeat partner kind of going off the reservation. He goes, okay, let me make sure I understand. So you're saying if I disappear for 6 months and you find me in New Orleans sniffing cocaine off a hooker's ass, you can kick me out of the company? I was like, I got to go write that down.
Yeah. That's going to be in the contract.
I'll be back. No, not in the contract. I'm going to go write that on a bumper sticker. I need to go write that so I can use it over and over and over. And so that's, oh my gosh, he's so funny. And he was like, yeah, we've seen that a time or two.
Yeah.
You can kick me out if I do that.
It's interesting. Yeah, man. I think that, and we didn't think a lot of it, in the beginning stages of things. And I think it's crucial, and especially the CPA thing. My goodness.
Well, like if you're
CPA
starting
and a lawyer,
if you're starting alone and it's just you, I had this conversation last night with a guy who was in my office, and I said, he's going to be in the outdoor space. Okay. And he said, I'm going to go buy one of those vintage Suburbans. And I'm going to use it to make content. I'm going to use it to make, I'm going to use it in my business. And I said, great. The company's going to own it, right? Title it when you're about to buy it. Put it in the company's name. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. That means all your gas, all your car washes, all your maintenance is a company expense, and that you only need to, you're going to pay income tax on your personal use of that vehicle. But if it's not your daily driver, so what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So my firm owns my car. I'm always driving to and from a work thing, which is primarily because my wife doesn't let me drive when we're together because she white knuckles it, and I respect her decision.
Yeah.
And so, it's maybe 10% personal use. But there, is your cell phone a company expense? Do you like the CPA thing? If you're going to have a home office, the way to get audited and lose is to not use a CPA to do your home office.
Yeah, we learned that. I mean, we didn't do it that way. We chose the right way to do it because we didn't want to.
But it's super complicated.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And one of the other ways was more complicated than the other way, and I was like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it simple.
So I don't know that TurboTax is going to, and that's the legal Zoom of tax.
Yeah.
I don't know that TurboTax is going to be able to walk you through the nuance of.
TurboTax pretty much sucks in my book now after a $12,000 payback this year. Yeah. I hate TurboTax now. Yeah. We're so good about all of our taxes, and they came back like 3 years later on an investment we took out, and we thought we'd done everything right, but one little box, $12,000. My goodness gracious.
That's an expensive box.
Yes, it was a very expensive box. So, obviously within the realm of COVID, we're very fortunate in Texas, right? I mean, even in Dallas, I mean, you saw everybody in the nation, I'm sure, saw the story of, I think she was a salon, right? She had the salon here.
Right.
You know which one I'm talking about. Did you have any businesses in your realm that were dead set, that were like, nope, we're not going to close, we're going to stay completely open?
I don't think so.
No?
I think,
what would have been your, let's say a client comes to you and said, I'm not closing. I mean, I assume you're going to help fight for them.
if somebody had if she or somebody like her had come to me and said, I'm going to do this, I would have said, okay, well, then if that's the choice, then here's what we need to do to be safe.
And what would you do?
So I would have said, the most important thing is you need to understand the potential ramifications of this. So it might, in the grand scheme of things, in the cost benefit analysis, it may generate more media marketing, social media traffic, client development than the fine, right? And so it might ultimately be a good business decision, but I want that person to weigh the pros and the cons of that. I don't want it to just, I spend a lot of time trying to make people not have knee-jerk reactions to stimulus. Some stimulus comes, knee-jerk reaction is almost always wrong, especially when the desire is to rage against the stimulus. I shouldn't say stimulus because it means so much more now post-COVID. I'm not talking about monetary stimulus. I'm talking about being poked in the eye.
Yeah.
So to at least breathe, contemplate, take 24 hours, and then make sure that this cost-benefit analysis works. And then if it does, say, we saw so many, like in Philadelphia, those bar owners, New York, those bar owners, and the lawyer was literally standing outside.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's awesome. Like, I want to be that dude.
Yeah. Yeah, the gym owner in New Jersey.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like arm in arm with his lawyer.
Yeah.
Letting people in. And part of that is that you show that you have advocacy. You show that, like, he was spending money out of his own pocket to have an attorney there. And look, the attorney might have also been doing like, hey, I'm on the news.
Yeah.
Like, fine, great. Everybody's got a cost benefit analysis.
Right, exactly.
And so
everybody's got a bottom line.
Right. But, my biggest thing is risk mitigation, and just by making sure people understand the risk. I don't care if you take, like, small business is about taking risks, but I want people to understand as many of the potential variables that are out there as they can, because I've seen hundreds of variables. I can think of things that you haven't, especially in the moment, So I would have said, if you're going to stay open, then you need to probably give your employees the option to not come to work. You may just be there by yourself. Because the last thing you want is some employee going on the news and saying, no, she made me.
Yeah.
She said I wasn't going to be able to be my family if I didn't show up in defiance of, like, you want to wear the white hat as much as you can, even though you're breaking the rule. So it's all about perception. So I would have just, said, hey, let's sit down and think about, and it's not an afternoon. It's like, hey, let's spend 30 minutes talking about this.
Yeah.
And then if you need me, I'm on speed dial,
Yeah.
And I'll figure out how to bail you out.
Yeah.
If things go sideways,
I'll then go from hospitality to criminal law, which, does that happen a lot? Where it's no, okay. I was going to say, it seems like both. So if it were to go to criminal, would you still
No.
Okay.
No, the list of things I don't do is way longer than the things that I do.
Yeah,
I mean,
good.
I definitely know what I don't do.
So
Like I said, that tax stuff, like my engagement agreement basically says, we're not giving you tax advice. And if I accidentally give you tax advice, don't rely on it.
yeah,
Please.
that's good. That's good. So obviously you are pro 2A, American loving, tactical games running.
Running. I like
Yeah,
it. Not
yeah.
competing.
Yeah. Well, competing, whatever you want to call it.
No.
Business owners and weapons in the place. It was one of the questions was, and I really know how to generalize it, but
That's okay.
you know, we live in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got business owners that want to protect their business with a firearm, right? And I'm all for it. You know, I believe everybody has a right to own a gun.
Sure.
What is your, I guess, one of the question, what is your advice to a business owner, small business owner that wants to arm themselves for protection?
Sure. So they are 100% able to do that unless they are prohibited from carrying a gun in the first place. But as everybody who listens to your podcast probably knows, two things are happening on September 1st. One, as an aside, law enforcement has to keep their body cams on.
Yep.
And two, we have constitutional carry. So
don't even get me started on the body cam thing.
So I know that's why I brought it up. I was trying to
But I mean, and here's
you.
what, and I'll preface this real quick. The thing about the body camera thing and what the law doesn't allow for, which I think is so stupid, and I think it's a stupid law, is the fact I'm all for filming every encounters. I have nothing to hide.
Mm-hmm.
But where I do have hide is when I start dealing with confidential informants and people that are in fear of retaliation for crimes against them, or people that want to help better the community. But now I've got to tell them, hey, you're not going to be confidential anymore, so you may be murdered because you're coming forth about this shooting or this major drug deal. That's where I have an issue with it.
Right.
Anyways,
That makes it tough.
go ahead.
See what I did there?
Yeah, see, I see what you did there.
So let's talk about constitutional carry, because that, and for people that are not in Texas or in the 40 states or whatever that have it, constitutional carry is anyone who is legally allowed to possess a firearm may carry concealed. That's the rule. So that means if you're a felon, if you've been deemed sort of mentally incompetent, whatever, you're not allowed to carry a firearm anyway. You couldn't go buy one. You can't carry one concealed. But now everybody can carry concealed who meets that criteria, which is damn near everybody. So I've had a lot of calls from people who have asked simply, how is this changing from what it was before? So before, you could put the 30-06 sign in the window, 30.06 of the penal code that says you can either prohibit concealed carry, or 30-07 says you can prohibit open carry. There are also signs that you probably don't notice typically, but in places that serve alcohol, they either have a 51% red sign if they're a bar, or they have a blue sign that says the unlicensed possession of a firearm is a felony, because they sell alcohol there. And if you were, so that previously meant if you are not a concealed carry holder, you do not have a concealed handgun license, you can't bring a gun into the premises. Those signs are going away. People won't necessarily know to take them down, but they are completely meaningless with constitutional carry. So you have two, as a business owner, you have two rights. You have, let's call it three rights. The first one is, if you can carry in your own business, unless there is a rule by the building owner of the place where your business is that says that you can't, because ultimately it rests with the real estate, then you can carry. If you own your building, you can do whatever you want. It used to just be pawn shops and jewelry stores.
Yeah.
Now it's everywhere. And so you can also put it in your employee handbook to prohibit people from carrying no weapons on the premises. And I've seen enough fights and stabbings and things in the kitchen to know that it can get volatile back there. It's a small space. It's hot. People are busy. But just as a general rule, people might say, employees, leave it in the car. They're perfectly okay to do that. You don't have to. There's a restaurant in Colorado, I think, that's gotten some real notoriety because everybody's got a 6-shooter on her hip there at that restaurant. I can't remember the name of it, but I saw it on the news last year, and I thought, that's an interesting shtick.
I love 6-shooters. Anyways.
But the other thing is the signs. So what I used to tell people that would ask me when it was CHL or nothing, concealed handgun license or nothing, or LTC, license to carry. you could prohibit people from open carrying, which most of my clients do, because open carry just tends to draw a lot of attention. I'm personally not a big fan of open carry. I think it's strategically
I'm not either. Yeah,
silly.
because you're the first person I'm going to shoot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who wants to be the target?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I don't want you to know.
So the other thing is, I don't want somebody who's bigger, stronger, faster, and meaner than me to take it away from me and then use it on me.
Yeah.
That's the second thing. So anyway, 30-07 I didn't have an issue with, and so a lot of our people have that in their window, and that is going to. You can still prohibit open carry with a sign, and it's fine. The concealed carry sign is probably going to become more important for people that do not want people, whether they have an LTC or not, to carry. Before September 1st of this year, which is in a few days, I used to tell people I would recommend that you not put that sign up because they're trained. They have to go through the class. They're background checked. They're fingerprinted. Those are probably people that you want in your business, right? Those are more likely to be good actors than bad actors. Now, it's probably 50-50. People have been calling me saying, where do I buy the signs? How do I know that I'm not buying a sign, from some internet site that doesn't comply with the rules? What are the rules? Where do I have to put it? All that stuff. Because a lot of people are saying constitutional carry is coming. I want to prevent concealed handguns simply because now we don't know if they're LTC holders or not.
Yeah.
So that's, I think we will see a lot more of those signs pop up. And, there are rules about the signs. You guys can look them up. And they have to be 1-inch tall letters. They have to be in English and Spanish. They have to have a contrasting color, I believe. And so when you see it, at least you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I went a little further than what you'd asked. But because the answer to the question you asked was yes. It wasn't. It depends. If you own that company, you can carry unless that building has said no firearms on the premise.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So I guess the answer really was it depends.
It depends. Yeah. It's gray. Yeah, man. It's the same thing within law enforcement. I remember in the academy wanting just black and white answers, and then you get into the world and you start working, and you're like, yeah, oh God, there is no black and white at all. It's completely gray.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate you supporting the show. I'm really looking forward to doing more with you and having this perspective and really getting to know some of the other restaurants that he's got, on this list. So I need to know some of these. So real quick, if you're in the Dallas area, name 3 of your favorite restaurants.
Oh man, that's a loaded question.
3
can hurt a lot of feelings.
Right now,
I
know you probably have
that's
a
good
lot,
qualifier. Yeah. So I'll do it in 3 zones. So nicer, neighborhood services around the Metroplex. I've literally never had a bad bite of food, and the service is top.
Wait, what's the name of it?
Neighborhood Services.
Oh, okay.
Is the name of the restaurant.
I thought you were naming a company. I was like, okay, what do they do?
The restaurant's name
is
Neighborhood Services, and it's just fantastic. It's so well done and well executed. Everyone's well trained.
Is that more fine dining? You say?
Yeah, it's nicer. It's probably on the low end of fine. It's like business casual. And then for pizza, Cane Rosso is.
Where's that?
There's like 6 or 7 of them. Cane Rosso and Zoli's. I mean, we work with a lot of pizza people, right? So depending on the neighborhood, Greenville Avenue pizza's great, especially late at night.
So are you thick crust, thin crust?
So
Neapolitan. What's your favorite?
Cane Rosso is Neapolitan.
Okay.
And I just love that style. But they're about to open a Detroit style, which has the cheesy crust around the side. And
I'm not a fan of that.
I
don't like deep dish. And he does you like deep dish?
I don't like Chicago deep dish, but the sort of 3/4 inch cheesy edge.
So you're like a Pizza Hut thick crust or deep dish fan. Then.
But I love Neapolitan.
Yeah,
it's my go-to.
Yeah.
It just doesn't travel very well.
Where are you traveling to?
You got to eat like my house.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what are you doing?
If I pick it up,
taking a trip with your pizza?
No, like if I pick it up and you got to eat car pizza. You got to eat that one car slice.
Yeah.
But there are there's so many.
God, I hate people like you that eat the car slice.
Oh man,
God, that pisses me off.
The easiest one, E Fratelli, which has locations all over the place. It's a thin but really crispy crust. That's a car slice because they cut them in rectangles, and you can just slip one right out.
Yeah, I was pissed yesterday because somebody in this room wanted me to pick up sandwiches for dinner, and then she wanted me to go make a stop with the sandwiches, and the sandwiches were hot, and all I could think about was how soft the spread was getting from all the juices. And I'm like, it's the one time in my life I'm like, okay, I probably may have a car sandwich, right? Because I just need to eat it now so it's safe.
Yeah.
Disgusting. Anyways, typically I would never say car slice, but whatever. All right, and then what's the last restaurant?
That's tough. So, there's a couple of places that all three of us in our family can agree on 100% of the time, and these guys aren't a client, but we love going there. It's Meso Maya, it's Tex-Mex, and man, it's just we love it.
Really? Where were the tacos from this morning?
Resident Taqueria in Lake Highlands.
Man, that short rib taco was awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They do such a good job.
Well, that's awesome, man. No, I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to doing more, and I really like the perspective you have. Here's the deal. First off, where can people find you?
DenneyLaw.com, DenneyLaw.com, and at Denney Law on Instagram.
Cool. He's got 2 Instagrams, but the other one's at Denney Law, right?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I was going to give a shout out for the other one. That's a more personal one.
Yes, that is not the business one.
Yeah, not the business one. At Denney Law is the business one. Hit him up with any questions, guys. If you're any small businesses, if you have a business, especially in hospitality, great resource here. Take advantage of it.
They all need the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody needs to start a company. Everybody needs to lease a space. Everybody has employees. Everybody has contracts. Everybody wants to sell or be acquired or whatever. The whole life cycle of a small business is the same. And so the trademark for our firm is that we're a nose to tail law practice.
I like it.
What we don't say is rooter to the tutor, because that doesn't sell so well. But it's the entire life cycle of a small business is why we exist. We're a one-stop shop for all of that stuff. And it has just served a lot of people really well for 15 years.
That's awesome. So I'm going to ask you something pretty tough, just because we've had a tough week for America. And I can't close the show without addressing it, because it really hit home for us at home. And I think it hit home with America with everything going on in Afghanistan. And I'll say to anybody, and we've got some personal acquaintances that have been personally affected. We've all been affected by it, but personally affected by this. And our prayers go out to the men and women of service right now. What were your thoughts?
It has been a tough week, and I told you before we got started, it was hard to get work done.
Yeah.
It was very distracting.
Oh, it was.
For the last 18 months, there have been a lot of things happening, but this week in particular, I think because everything in Afghanistan happened so fast, it took everyone's breath away.
Yeah.
And, Thursday night, my daughter was out at a play with some friends, and she came home and she said, "Why is the flag out?" And I was like, did you not hear what happened today? And she said, "No." So I sat her down and I just said, "Well, this is what happened. It was just bad."
Yeah.
And we talked about it a little bit, and I said, because we don't keep the flag out overnight. We don't have a pole. We just have the stick, Yeah. And it's not normally out. But I put it out, and I left it out overnight, and it's still up. And it's just a nickel of a gesture.
Yeah.
But it's just something.
Yeah.
Right? It's just to show solidarity. Like, I don't know that we will ever as a nation get back to September 12, 2001 status again in unity.
And I hope we don't, because what that would mean happened.
Oh yeah.
It means something else. It's going to take something. Yeah. And I said it to my father-in-law yesterday that we're a very forgetful nation. And I'm responsible of it too. I just realized this. Sorry. I just realized we're coming up on 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years. And here we are sitting with a limp-dick president who doesn't want to make a decision to support his Americans on the 20th anniversary. and I can't help. And I kept trying to find myself like, what can I do right now? Right. Like, what can you do? And I tried to reach out to different people of service, because I saw a lot of people posting like, well, what was all this for? And if anything, what it was for the brothers and sisters they laid their lives down for them. Right.
Right. Who were 1, 2, 3 years old.
Yeah.
In 2001.
Exactly. Yeah. Because there's very few people that have fought all 20 years, right? There's a few operators, right, that have been there the whole time, that were just older dudes and barrel-chested older guys. But, it's just a unique situation. And, I mean, you said it, you're right, distracted, but I just can't help but we're such a forgiveful nation, and I hope, my hope and prayer is we do not forget this, with everything coming up.
So, I thought I was sitting there last night at the end of this, essentially the end of that week, and I wanted to do something. So I hope everyone knows you'll never change anybody's mind by making an Instagram post. You will never convince something of anything. If you don't know that, send a direct message, not to me. Send it to Brad.
Yeah.
And try to convince him of something.
Thank you.
But I gave $100 to Chad Robichaux because he's literally over there. They've gotten 5,300 people out.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot. And there's several other organizations.
And there's a ton.
Yeah.
Right. But, is that going to move the needle? No, it's not. Did it make me feel like I was helping? Sure. It was a series of clicks.
But imagine if everybody did something like that.
Right.
And I'm talking like, even if you can't financially do it right now, I challenge you to call and check on your veterans.
For sure. Call
and check on the ones that are serving right now. I know it's especially been tough for the ones that I've reached out to, and I'm sorry if I've missed everybody. I know it's especially been tough on them, right? Especially the ones that have been injured overseas, and but do something, right? And
the veteran community though has come together in the past 2 to 3 weeks, and they almost to a person have the same voice, and the voice has been, you didn't serve in vain, you're appreciated. And that has been really uplifting to see, because they have that platform.
Right.
I don't really have that platform.
Right, exactly.
And they do, because they are looked to. So the Eddie Pennies, right?
Yeah.
Tim Kennedy, Mike Glover, they have used their platform to continue to try and reinforce to people, you're not alone. You have resources. Resources are available to you. There are people to whom you can reach out. And if everyone retreated in their shell and just steamed and festered about, I can't believe this happened, I'm really upset and I'm sad, but I'm going to keep it to myself, that would cause a lot more turmoil in the veteran community, I think. And so, if here's something that people who don't know what to do can do. If you see, and I'm not a veteran, but my stepfather was. He self-described a deranged Vietnam combat vet. And if you see somebody with a DV license plate, if you see somebody with a sticker on their car, anything, 101st, Vietnam, whatever, first cap, all the stickers you see, right? Just if you happen to pass them in the parking lot, get out of the car at the same time, say something.
Yeah.
Just thank them.
Yeah.
I mean, that is as simple and effortless as a thing that you will find, but you're just going to be putting goodwill out into the ether.
Yeah, which we need more of it, because, I think that we're in a trying time, and I can't wait for this presidency to be over. I can't wait for, I just realized it's only been 8 months. It's only been 8 months, man, and here we are.
I have a feeling this presidency will be over pretty soon.
Oh, 100%. I think we're in agreement of that. I think the platform is being laid, and 100% he needs to get out of office. He needs to go retire in a dark hole somewhere. But then it's fearful of his predecessor. Successor. He's the lawyer. I'm not. It's fearful, man. I mean, it's damned if we do, damned if we don't. But right now we're just damned. And I just really hope and pray for the closure of this situation over there, that we can get everybody out and without another loss of life. So, yeah. Can't really think of anything else other than my last question I have for you, and you've heard it from other episodes, and I was going to ask you.
I have heard it.
So, in a world lived of commonality, we're seeing it. We're seeing it with our own president. He's just a common person, right? Nothing uncommon about him other than he's wearing a presidential patch now. In a world of commonality, in a world of just lackluster individuals, non-leaders, what do you believe being uncommon means to you?
I think the simple answer is being uncommon is trying to better yourself. Always. It's rare. Because when we talked about doing this, I of course started cribbing for it, trying to think about it. And I thought of all kinds of things, and I was like, no, that's not it. That's not uncommon. Everybody does that. Everything I came up with was common.
Yeah.
And then I thought, people that are setting a goal and achieving it is so uncommon.
Yeah.
So many people are stuck in just they're okay with mediocrity because it's easy.
Right.
Once people have plateaued at a sustainable level of mediocrity, they're all good. And working to better yourself, whether physically, mentally, reading more, anything, it's pretty uncommon. So that's what I think it is.
It's awesome. Yeah, you're right, man. I think
that's what I'll strive to do.
I think that that hits it home, and especially like with what we've talked about small business owners, right? Like in the world they've lived in, a lot of the worlds you've been in with them, of just obtaining goals and getting there, right? And sometimes those are small things, right? But set the small goals to meet the big goals, right? And there's so many people that just don't even set the small ones.
Right.
And they don't even reach the small ones, but yet they want the big goal, right?
Right.
So
it's great to be a dreamer, but it's so much better to be a doer.
Exactly. That's great. That's a shirt right there. Denney Law, everybody. And we'll close it with that. So thanks again, man. I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you for the mimosas. I was surprised we didn't get into the second bottle. So the next one we'll do in the evening time. It'll be a whiskey time. Some Leatherwood, brought to you by Leatherwood. So guys, make sure you check out Denney Law Group. If you got anything, especially if you're a business owner, hit them up, please. Don't hit my inbox up because I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, and I'm just going to send you straight over to him.
That's the complaint department.
Yeah, and if you want any restaurant suggestions, I suggest you head over to him. He'll get them to you. You hit him from there. Guys, please remember, stay safe, stay switched on, and stay calm.
It's who we are.